camp.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Just for clarification, Matt is chaperoning at sixth grade camp. He's not at sixth grade. Yeah, just wanted to, in case anyone was wondering.
No, he wasn't even invited. He just didn't get to go as a sixth grader. So they were.
Why do that?
They pulled a permit, so he decided to go up there.
Hold on, I need to.
All right. All right. Well, welcome to our Measure T Renewal Investment Plan Steering Committee meeting. We'll go into the interpretation services.
Dina?
Welcome. Welcome everyone. We have Spanish interpretation available for you for this meeting. If you are a monolingual English speaker, we do encourage you to please select the English channel once the interpretation is on. You will see a globe at the bottom of your screen. Select the English channel. If you are using a phone or a tablet, you need to tap your screen. Select the three little dots that you see at the bottom. Select language interpretation, then select English and then done. That way you can hear any communication from Spanish into English. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. Tenemos interpretación en español disponible para ustedes en esta junta. Aún la interpretación no está encendida, pero una vez que se encienda, si ustedes están utilizando una computadora, van a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte baja de su pantalla. Seleccionen el canal de español. Si están utilizando un teléfono móvil o una tableta, van a seleccionar los tres puntitos en la parte baja de su pantalla donde dice más o more. Seleccionen interpretación de idioma, después seleccionen español y por último listo o finalizar para que puedan escuchar la junta en español. Thank you very much. We can turn it on now.
Dina, would you like to go through these webinar protocols?
Microphones will be automatically muted. Video will be off for our public attendees. Video will remain off for public attendees, even while speaking. Post general questions in the Q&A box. Use the raised hand function to direct a question to the speaker or steering committee. For attendees that joined by phone, *9 is the raise hand function. Phone callers, please use *6 to unmute and mute yourself, not the mute function of your phone. There will be a public comment period at the end of the agenda. If you plan to comment, add your name, agency, and subject matter to the Q&A box. When called upon to speak, staff will unmute your microphone, state your name, agency, organization, or special interest group. All speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Staff will announce when your time is up.
Great. Thanks, Dina. There are 2 opportunities for public comment during today's steering committee meeting, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting under agenda item 7. If you have comments related to specific projects, please contact your local agency and direct those comments to them. We also have MCTC staff who is working on the regional transportation plan, and they will also accept any project specific comments as well. The steering committee will address only regional transportation projects along the state highways or other major arterials that connect the cities and unincorporated communities. The steering committee is a working group responsible for development of the investment plan. They will ultimately recommend approval of the plan to the Madera County Transportation Authority, and it is that board who will take action to approve the plan and request that the Board of Supervisors place the ballot measure on the November 2022 ballot. With that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Let's take the meeting minutes for April 28th. First, and that'll also be our introductions. We can do a roll call vote with that, which will also serve as our introductions.
You want Dina to take the roll now?
No, we'll see if there's is there a motion for the minutes?
And we have 2 sets, one for the 28th and one for the 5th.
Looks like maybe, I'm not sure, Frank, is that a motion?
Yes, I'd make a motion that we approve the April 28th minutes.
All right, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a sec. Derek, did you have any questions? You're on mute.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Dina, can you,
Sorry,
That's right.
getting there.
sorry, that's all right, no problem.
Madera Chamber of Commerce, Debbie Bray. MVP Realty, John Reed. Red Barn Cafe owner, Lisa Soroyan. Visit Yosemite, Madera County, Rhonda Salisbury.
Here and yes.
Council member Diane Palmer. City of Chowchilla, Rod Pruitt.
Yes.
City of Chowchilla, Jason Rogers.
Yes.
City of Madera, Council member Rodriguez.
Yes.
City of Madera, Mayor Garcia.
Here.
City of Madera, Arnaldo Rodriguez.
Yes.
City of Madera, Keith Helmuth.
Yes.
City of Madera, Ellen Bitter.
Here.
City of Madera, David Huff.
Here.
Valley Children's Hospital, Tim Curley. Madera County Public Health Department, Stephanie Nathan.
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier.
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras.
Yes.
Jay Varney. Madera County, Matt Traber. Madera County, Jared Carter.
Yes.
Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, Leticia Lucan. Camarena Health Center, Paulo Soros. Camarena Health Center, Nicole Mesqueda. Madera County Farm Bureau, Christina Beckstead. Creekside Farming, David Mahill, or I'm sorry, Defender Mahill.
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Thanks. Madera County Superintendent of Schools, Opie Ryer. Madera Community College, Angel Reyna. Cal Fire, Matt Watson.
Yes.
Caltrans, David Padilla.
Yes.
Building Industry Association of Fresno and Madera Counties, Michael Prandini. Madera County Economic Development Commission, Bobby Kahn. Tahiti Chapter of the Sierra Club, Bill Felvo. MCTC, MCTA, Patricia Taylor.
Yes.
Central California Labor Council, Mike Lopez. Central California Labor Council, Chuck Riojas. Social Service Transportation Advisory Council, Frank Simonis.
Yes.
Active Transportation Advocate, Jeffrey Wheeler. Active Transportation Advocate, Conrad Gaunt. San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, Dan Levitt. Student Representative from Madera Community College, Jonathan Stromer. Our Community Advocate, Derek Robinson.
Yes.
And our Community Advocate, Donald Foley. That concludes roll.
All right, so that was rolling. And vote, so good. We'll move on.
I was gonna say, does that cover both?
Yeah, that covers both. You like that? We're getting efficient.
I didn't know if a here counted as a yes or not, so.
All right, public comment related to items on the agenda. Is there any public comment related to items that are on the agenda? Anything online?
Don't see anything.
All right, moving on. Item 3, MT3, renewal investment plan and implementing guidelines outlined.
Yes, we had forwarded to you. I'm going to go to the outline in a Word document because it would be too small to put in here. We had forwarded you an outline of the plan itself, the investment plan, as well as the implementing guidelines. And we have actually assigned sections of both documents to various project team members, MCTC, MCTA, and consultant team staff. We are in the process of, we'll be meeting on Tuesday, at our regular staff meeting to review progress, to talk about specifics related to each of the documents, and then really move forward quickly with development of the plan and the guidelines. They will be separate documents moving forward. So the plan will be prepared so that it can be presented to the public as a public draft that will be out for a 30-day review period. We will have a link that will be available in that plan to the implementing guidelines in case they want to receive additional information related to how the programs are going to be implemented over time. So the outline includes for the plan an introduction similar to the plan that we have in place now for the current Measure T. We're calling that Measure T2, and this would be Measure T3. So we have an introduction which would review the why Measure T is being extended, an investment plan overview, the success of the previous and current measures. The first measure was called Measure A. The Measure T benefits, what it has contributed to the region in terms of addressing transportation needs, and then what will be contained in the plan itself. Then we will get into the goals and objectives and policies that this committee approved several months ago, or more than several months ago. We'll talk about the Measure T renewal process, the responsibilities and role of the authority, the steering committee, and the outreach process will also be highlighted so that everyone understands that we did have an outreach process, an engagement process that was underway for this process, for this planning process as well. The expected Measure T's proceeds, looking at the duration, which in this case will be until ended by voters. The proceeds estimated over a 30-year time frame. And then the scheduled renewal investment plan updates, which will occur every 15 years. The plan programs and funding allocations, there'll be a specific section on each one of the programs, the highlights of those programs. We'll also have a table reflective of the programs and the allocation over an annual as well as a 30-year period, and a pie chart that will do the same. So it'll show what the percentage is going to which form of transportation, or which of the programs and sub-programs. There'll be a section on further information, and then a section on the oversight committee. With respect to the implementing guidelines, this document, as I mentioned, will be referenced in the investment plan. It will be separate, and again, there will be a link in the investment plan that the reader can go to and can dive into additional detail regarding how the plan will be implemented. There'll be an introduction, the purpose of the guidelines. This section will be reflective of every program and sub-program, and we'll get into that in just a minute. There'll be performance measure development process that will occur after the plan is approved, and we can talk about that. The governing board and organizational structure, how the plan will be updated, approved, and amended, independent financial audits that will be required, the Citizens Oversight Committee again, and then the outreach program and process for as the plan is implemented over time. As I mentioned up here in the yellow, there will be additional sections associated with each one of the programs. We have 4 programs, and under program 1, we have 4 sub-programs. We have the local neighborhood and major streets maintenance program. We have the local street and road improvements sub-program, the flexible sub-program, and then the regional streets and highways sub-program. Additionally, besides the local program, we have the public transit program as program number 2, the active transportation, which is bikes, pedestrians, and trails, and then finally, the clean transportation and new technologies. We will also have a component in here related to the administration program. Going back up here to the top, sorry for the dizziness that may have caused you. Under each one of those sections, we will describe the program and subprogram, the implementing agencies that are responsible for implementing that program or subprogram, the Measure T program disbursement process and requirements, so that the local agencies and other affected agencies, responsible agencies, know how to receive their funds, eligible projects and programs, other requirements, and then performance indicators. With the performance indicators, it'll probably just be a very generalized review or example indicators. Actual performance measures will be developed after the plan is approved and prior to the election. But there will be performance measures that will ultimately be prepared for each of the programs where applicable. At the last meeting, we asked you to provide us with any specific implementing guideline components or contents that you would like us to ensure that you would like us for us to consider as we start to pull these implementing guidelines together. So if any of you have any ideas, thoughts, issues, now would be the time to let us know. We will also have this, plan and the implementing guidelines out for 30-day review, probably beginning around June 20th or so, 15th to the 20th. The MCTC board will be taking action on the plan and the implementing guidelines in July. We'll also be going to each of the jurisdictions, the 2 councils, as well as the Board of Supervisors in June/July to review the documents with them and receive any feedback from them as well as approval. So with that, I will turn it back over to Tricia. Do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, that was pretty comprehensive. So that was, you touched on everything. I'd like to hear from the group though, what they want added in addition to what they've heard.
So this is just something that as I've been talking with different people from Sacramento and different agencies, since all of our streets and roads are what we drive our transit on, if part of under the subprogram 1A, just shows that streets are multimodal for here, because we have the buses and everything that drives on it. That's our infrastructure. It could help with grants in the future, because every single dollar that we're using on the streets is really helping with even 99. You keep seeing and talking with the CTC, we need the buses are going to go on 99 or on 12 or on all of our streets and roads. So we're not putting in 4% to transit. We're putting in 100% to transit. Every dollar helps that. And so it would just help for grants. And I don't want to change the name of the sub program, because I think voters in Madera would see that as that it was just going to transit, but maybe as a definition of streets and roads, that it is multimodal.
Yeah, and we could do something like that up in this front part, because it would also affect the active transportation program.
Mm-hmm.
So we could do that there as well.
Yeah, because really the transit portion of it, 4% is really for, actually purchasing buses. We don't need a whole lot, it's transit, I don't know, administration or something like that.
Yeah, and there under the transit sub-program, there is quite a bit in there in terms of eligible projects. Let me get down to that. So under public transit, it includes operations and capital improvements, but you're right, it does not include, providing for the actual street or road that the bus needs to travel. That's really the responsibility of the local transportation program.
Right,
But
and
I
I think
think-
just showing the link to that in the
Right,
transportation. So it shows that we are spending money on transit, even when we're doing what the voters really want, which is to fix the roads.
right.
So maybe the transit line, because when you look at it, it just says transit, and that's what, Sacramento may look at that and think, oh, that's, that's all they're putting towards transit, and that's not the case. So we have it as transit operations, maybe, and then somewhere in the streets and roads, showing that those are multimodal, it shows that, a lot more is going to transit, and we can use that to leverage to get more funds. So just a kind of a little nuanced thing, but I think would be
Okay.
powerful.
Sounds great.
Frank?
Under performance indicators, how are we going to decide what a performance indicator is in order to make decisions, since it appears that we're going to put this before the voters as a tax that will continue indefinitely unless the voters repeal it? I think we need to be specific about that. I think it was number F somewhere on there on your draft. Your draft copy is different than what I have in my email, so I'm trying to look at my screen.
Yeah.
I think we need to be specific. What is a performance indicator? Is it a threshold, or, in other words, since this doesn't end, we need to do our due diligence now for the voters, because many of us might not be around 30 years or so, from now, or working here, we've retired, and we want the next generation coming behind us, is what I'm thinking about, to say, these are performance indicators. You new folks 20 years from now need to be meeting these goals, these thresholds, to make sure that things get done. One of mine is our PCI going up? Are we fixing our roads, or do we allow them to continue to degrade? In other words, actually.
Right. Yeah. So we will identify some performance indicators, or at least examples, that should be considered as we develop the performance measures this next summer, this coming summer. So there will be performance measures that will be incorporated into the implementation process, but these implementing guidelines will just refer to the indicators, and we will be including such an indicator in the maintenance program. And that's what we want the voters to be aware of, that we are not just looking to allocate the funds without understanding exactly how it's benefiting the PCI over time. And that's the details of those performance measures we will work out with the local agencies, so that they can understand exactly what it is that they're going to need to address as they spend those dollars and as they improve those roads.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I assume that means that you're good with that, Frank. Rod?
Yeah, I believe it was brought up before, and it said it was something that could be addressed during implementation, but we had talked about the ability for agencies to either swap funds or donate funds to other agencies. Like if somebody, especially a smaller agency like us, say didn't have really a project for our allocation in a certain area, the county or the city needed some of that allocation, whether it's active transportation or transit or whatever it may be, to be able to maybe swap money or donate, I guess you'd say, to another agency. Is that something that we would still be wanting to do, or?
Troy, can you speak to that?
Yeah, as far as, sorry, my voice is a little hoarse today. So as far as being able to do a inter-program loan or inter-program swap. So in the current measure, we have language for an inter-program loan, but not necessarily just a straight swap. And that's something, that we could entertain if needed to give some flexibility. I'm not sure exactly how that would look like, but I think we'd be open to that, to give flexibility. We would just need to have specific language.
This is Tricia with Madera Transportation. There would be a specific agreement and that we can entertain that. I think we can include that in our implementing guidelines and have some sort of side agreement between the agencies to allow for them to exchange funds, whether it be exchanging measure for let's just say RSTP or local or whatever it might be, or some sort of internal interprogram loan type that we've done in the past as well that Troy just mentioned. So I think what we would need to do is work with our council to draft up an agreement that would, when that time does happen, that would be between the two agencies. And so we can add language in implementing guidelines that that opportunity would exist.
Great. We'll make sure that that gets incorporated into the implementing guidelines.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ellen.
Good afternoon. Something else to consider is a means to access funds maybe that aren't being utilized. For instance, if a pot is growing and growing and growing in one of these subcategories that's not being spent, how can that be, for instance, loaned to another agency like Rod suggested, or moved into a different category or something like that?
Troy?
We have not done that in the current measure, and that's something that we have discussed a lot about. I'm not sure how that would play out, because if we say have the breakout of how, this is how much should be spent in each of these categories, we want to make sure that that money gets spent in that category.
Right.
And so if we can ensure that money gets spent in that category, then I think that we would be open to language to give some accountability. And that's where it kind of falls under the performance indicators, is if money is not being spent, there is no performance. And so I don't know, that's just something that we can look at.
This is Tricia with Madera Transportation. So I would suggest that we will have something written in the implementing guidelines that if you're sitting on funds for a certain number of years, we need to have a discussion with that particular agency to see if they're holding for a particular project. And if not, you're having difficulty spending in a certain category, that's a time that we're going to have to look at our funding allocations and percentages and find out, you know, why is it that we are not able to expend funds in a certain area? Maybe some other funds became available and some other pot of funds through the state or federal government that is sufficient for whatever the needs are. So we'll need to have that discussion on how we would change the percentage of allocation of funds. But I think we will need to include in the implementing guidelines at what point and how much will we allow an agency to sit on funds, because we need to get the funds out on the street as, you know, of course, as quickly as possible. More bang for our buck, number one. Number two, we just put the money on the roads and the voters want to see that. So I think we'll have to have some sort of guidance.
So that begs the question. I got a feedback. Oh, there it goes. Is there anything currently, Troy or Patricia, that is like that, or in the current measure? Is there any segment that builds up like that that hasn't been used? And do we have it correctly allocated right now before going out there and avoiding that now?
One reason we'll need to look at this is because it's until ended by voters. Yes, we do see some slowdown on expending of certain funds in certain categories, but there's reasoning behind that to a certain extent. We have a lot of different pots of funds and they accumulate slowly because the amount that Madera generates is not, you know, huge, but we have a lot of different pots. We do not have anything written in our guidelines in this current measure to change any kind of percentages in our current programs. But there is some slowdown in terms of spending in certain categories, and that's because we don't generate a lot of funds. And so we tried to make that change in this particular program that we're moving forward with. That's why we limited the number of categories in hopes that and broadened, you know, the types of projects under each category to allow some flexibility to allow for that.
So I think the answer is yes, we'll look at it. We'll incorporate what we can into the implementing guidelines.
I think the important part there is that we've seen what from Patricia's explanation is that this is more flexible to be able
Right.
to grow the money and get the projects out quicker.
Right.
Which is a good thing. So
Yeah,
that's
we don't.
one of the best answers I've had so far. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
There won't be a lot of little tiny pots like there are under the current program. And so, as she's mentioned, there are four major pots. There are 4 sub-programs under the first program, but they're all large percentage, for the most part, sub-programs. So we shouldn't have as much trouble with this next measure, spending the funds and building the funds up quickly and spending them. But if there are, we'll put some safeguards in the implementing guidelines to make sure that there are good reasons behind, you know, increasing those balances or holding onto those funds for a period of time.
That's fantastic. Ellen?
One more thought regarding the current measure and any funds that are still remaining at the end of that measure T. Can we use the new guidelines for expending the prior funds, or can we roll those into the new pots so we can get that money spent?
There's a process. We work with council on that. We did that last time. We had to wait a certain number of months, years, I can't remember, and then we rolled it over into a new program. So I need to look at that in more specifics on how we'll handle that for you, Ellen. So I can get back to you on that.
Ellen,
And whatever that answer is, we'll get it into
questions.
whatever that answer is, we'll get it into the implementing guidelines.
All right, Frank.
I just wanted to mention that this kind of flexibility is an excellent thing. Being able to trade with the cities and the county, being able to get things done in a more expedient way. I just wanted to give my voice of approval. This is something we really need to make sure is in this new Measure T, because it just benefits all of us all the way around and makes things easier.
Right. It's built into the programs that you approve. So it starts with you guys.
Well, and you look at what it can do is instead of trying to figure out how to spend little pots and try and find projects to fit those, you can just focus it on projects that we need and not have to get square pegs into round holes, just to spend it on something that doesn't really help or people don't see any true benefit from it. So I think it's great. Any other questions on this?
I have just one.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you, Chair Frazier. This question is probably more so for Patricia or maybe Georgina, whichever one can answer. So when it comes to the implementation of these guidelines and the questions surrounding flexibility come across, once the allocations of those categories are set, I mean, those are pretty much set in stone. I mean, I'm assuming the reason why certain projects don't go is because, as Alan stated earlier, they're getting a certain amount of money every year, but it's not enough to complete, or at least not enough to leverage the funds needed to complete a project. Would that be accurate in stating that? Is that why we don't complete these projects? And this is why a lot of times you have these funds that are sitting around for some time?
That's accurate.
Yeah, and with this program, currently under the current measure program, your flexible funds are being basically impounded and they are going toward the regional program. That's not going to occur with this next measure. So you're going to have a flexible pot of funding that you can use for any transportation purpose. You can add it to any of the other programs. Again, we've kept the number of programs to a minimum so that you can build up those balances and be able to accommodate projects sooner than you were previously. So I think there's a lot more flexibility built into this. The allocations will be what they are. And there'll be a revisit to the plan in 15 years to determine whether or not these programs are working. If there are issues with not being able to spend the funds, we'll know it at that point. If we know it sooner, there won't be anything to keep MCTA from amending the plan to look at that issue and determine what is appropriate in terms of the allocations. So if there are some issues, you're not able to deliver projects because the allocations are just too small or they're not effective, then at any point there can be an amendment to the plan. But definitely there will be one in a 15-year interval.
Yeah, and and maybe, I don't know if it's too premature for me, but I've voiced my concern on always trying to reduce the amount of regional and allow for more flexibility. And because this group has already somewhat, I'm not saying it's in stone yet, but we pretty much all reached a consensus of the allocations. I still would like to see a little less on the regional and more towards that flexible pot, so that projects don't go on a waiting list. And I know that it's easier now this time around, but I'd hate to wait another 15 years to find out that, hey, it's not enough. So, I mean, I would advocate to do an additional 2% and remove that from the regional category. I mean, at this time, I don't know how the rest of the group feels, but that's kind of where I'm at, where you give the flexibility to your local agencies. And that way, we don't wait around another 15 years and say, well, guess what? It's not the funds is just not adequate. It's not we're not allotting the amount that we need to finish up these projects. Those are my thoughts.
Jose, you look and sound much better today. I hope.
I do.
Yeah.
The whatever antibiotics that I'm taking are kicking in, so it's working well. Thank you.
That's good to see that. Yeah. Patricia, anyone from MCTC want to take that?
Sure. Well, we've had this discussion back and forth, and yeah, we started off with like 30%, and then we went down to 25%. It is less than, the regional is less than what's in the current program. I think Troy put in the chat last month or 2 months ago, 2 meetings ago, the differences in the percentages and for the regional. I guess I would say, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, I'm willing to go with what the wishes of this group is. I would just say that the same holds true for regional projects. As are regional, it's for all agencies, it's for access, it's for safety type projects, and the same holds true for regional projects. They are larger dollar amount projects because they're regional, and it takes a long time to accumulate funds to be able to deliver that project. The most important thing for measure funds for regional projects is really to try to help get it shelf ready, because state and federal dollars are not normally available for environmental purposes, right-of-way design, and you've got to go after construction funding. So it's to try to get a project shelf ready for delivery. But I am, whatever the wishes of this group is, we can move forward with. It's just that it is less revenues being generated than the current measure, and I already see how difficult it is just from an administrative point of view to deliver a regional project. But you can also argue that with population increase and over the years, we'll be generating a little bit more, but cost also increase too for projects. But so I just kind of put that out there, but for discussion purposes.
Sure.
In addition, if we were to change it, we've identified right now a little more than 10 years worth of funding for the regional set of projects. If that percentage goes down, then we're definitely looking at 15 years to deliver those projects. So
I see. And that, and the same can hold true for all the local projects as well. I'm not trying to say that, I'm wanting to make the change in a way that would hurt us. when I look at the survey, obviously, it states that folks are really more concerned about what's around them, what's adjacent to them, which is potholes, pavement, sidewalks. And I understand regional is a big component because it allows people to move freely, relieves congestion. But the same holds true with those projects. Now they take longer for us to complete, and also cost goes up as well. So what's more important? What are we presenting to the voters, right? And the voters are, based on those surveys, are saying, fix the potholes, get me fix the roads, and they also want to get somewhere, right? So that's the other double-edged sword. You have the other area, which is the region. You want to get through just main corridors, freeways, state highways, whatever the case may be. But I just threw it out there because I always feel that when we have that flexibility, projects have, they're probably they can be completed a lot faster, especially here locally.
But under this new funding fund, do we have, I mean, there is more money that's going to be allocated to doing that, correct, than is in the current measure?
I had a hard time understanding your question. Sorry.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, under this scenario, under this plan, there's more money for exactly what Jose is asking for, correct? There's more that's allocated to that directly. And
Yes.
so I think because of exactly everything you're saying, Jose, is why there's going to be more that we can get into actually fixing those roads and the potholes than we had before. Whereas before we had all the different little things that we had to also address instead of what was the more immediate need, which is everyone's front yard.
And keep in mind too, that when we improve those regional facilities, the potholes for those facilities are going to go away as well when that improvement is made. So we're hitting really two birds with one stone. We're enhancing the facility and the mobility along the corridor, or with bridge improvements, whatever it might be, but we're also upgrading the level of the roadway.
So in the chat, Troy McNeil just said it's over 60% more than the current measure for maintenance for those.
Correct.
For those roads. So I think that's an important thing to put out when we're going out to the voters of what this one actually does versus what the other one has been in the past. Great question.
Certainly, thank you for answering that. And again, my concerns are always that more sometimes isn't enough.
Yeah.
And obviously that's been evident with some of the projects that I don't think doesn't hold true only for our agency, but I'm sure Chowchilla and/or the county, there's just not enough to complete the projects at hand. So, and obviously based on the numbers, and we'll be at a deficit. I mean, we'll be short millions and millions of dollars to be able to complete and get to that index that Mr. Simones was requesting a couple meetings back. I think overall we just don't have enough money. So more is always better. And in this case, that's what I'm advocating for, is that we try to consider and utilizing that flexible account a bit more.
Frank?
Could we, is it possible, I guess is what I should start with, to add a statement to our percentage allocations as they're written that says, as these issues come up, could a city or the county apply to the MCTA and request some reallocations along the way, 2 years out, 5 years out, 8 years out, whatever it is, to allow for some flexibility in those hard numbers? Could we add a statement that says they can go to the MCTA and make a case, which could solve both? We leave the numbers as they are for budgeting, but if something comes up, they can, appeal for some assistance. Could we do that?
Yes, at any point in the process of the measure being implemented, a local jurisdiction or like a local jurisdiction can request that the MCTA amend the plan for whatever reason. But then it needs to go through a process for approval. But if there was justification, I'm sure if it was something that was fully justified and made sense, that it would be considered by the authority through the amendment process.
That sounds like it might be a good compromise. That way we can still plan and do budgeting at the same time, address needs as they arise along the road.
It is Troy and Tricia, do you want to comment on that? It's not something that you do all the time. How many amendments have there been to the plan during the current measure?
We've done updates to our strategic plan, but for the current measure, I believe the current measure only one amendment. Troy could correct me because he's handles the strategic plan. But we've just normally gone through a strategic plan process. However, our last process was a little bit more significant, so we had to do an amendment to the plan. Now, I've understood that other agencies have done more amendments, and so there isn't anything to prohibit us from doing an amendment to the plan, as long as we have it written process in place.
Yeah, and working with Fresno, they have amended probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 times during the current measure, and some of them have been related to eligible projects, and others have been related to reallocation of funding for specific projects, such as the high-speed maintenance station, high-speed rail maintenance station, if it were ever to be located in Fresno. So there have been requests on the part of the jurisdictions for amendments, and I'm assuming that the same process would occur here.
Yeah, for an example, for Fresno, they had rail consolidation in their plan, and
Right.
that was never going to happen. So they had to go back and amend their plan to redirect the rail consolidation funding. I think it went to the high-speed rail.
It actually went to the grade separation project from McKinley Blackstone.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a point of
So, I'm
reference,
new on that. Go ahead.
I say as a point of reference, we have had no allocation number percentage changes during the current measure. We've only updated, like you're saying, the eligible project list, and that was the only updates that we've made to the plan.
Do we need to put any special wording in place so that it's not overly complicated or takes too long to do? Like it takes 3 years to get it amended? Do we need to amend any special wording,
Yeah.
or does that just mean other?
Yeah, it's a streamlined process, right, Troy?
Yeah, we would prepare a draft. We would put it out for so many days for review and comment, and then we would then take it back to our board for approval. And then once that's approved, then we would notify the 2 cities in the county, and they would be effective. I think the PUC code says 45 days after notification.
So within 2.5 months, you could see an amendment through from beginning to end.
Yeah, if it's a simple amendment that I
Right.
think we could do it that quick. Something a little more complicated will probably take a little bit longer to vet it out, but
Sure.
it could go that quick.
Mhm.
Derek. I think you're on mute, Derek.
Can you hear me now?
Ken.
All right. I was saying this program, Measure T, is coming along really good. I see it from the beginning and now toward the end. And I was just we just can't depend on Measure T funds alone. There are also developmental fees, state grants and federal grants, in addition to the total allotment of funds for the road improvement. It's a total pie, and
Right.
And so, like I said, it's a addition to what we have already.
Right. Even the projects that we've listed in the regional program, all will rely on not just Measure T funds, but other funding that the local agencies have identified as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Derek. Rod?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Troy had said about the 60% more. is that a dollar to dollar comparison from today to the end of the projected 30-year period? Or, because that's not a percentage to percentage comparison, because there's not even 60% going to the program for local streets and roads. So I was just wondering what
it's the change in, it's the rate of change between the allocation percentages. So the new percentage is 60% higher than the current percentage.
Oh, okay. It's a percentage increase. Okay, I got you.
Plus you'll have a flexible program as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why I said over 60%. It's at least 60%.
Right.
It could be higher depending on how you choose to use your funds.
Right. That flexible.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jose?
Yes, thank you again. I don't want to beat this to death, but I think these are important questions coming to the rounding third and coming home. Frank brought up a pretty good point in regards to the language. And I think it's easier to request an amendment change when you're trying to take funds from a regional to more local. But would you say that holds the same if then we're requesting from local to regional? In a case where a project that requires additional funding, how hard would that be to get through? Because you'd have to have agreement between agencies to do that. Is that correct?
So I'm just going to think of an example. Let's just say there's a regional project in the jurisdiction of the city of Madera. And there's not enough funding, but the city of Madera wants to deliver this project sooner than it would take for to accumulate the amount of funding or to go after certain grants. I would think we would be working together and seeing if the city had any funds that they wanted to contribute to the project. A lot of the other agencies in the state of California rely heavily on local agencies to get the projects shelf ready in order to deliver a project, not necessarily measure. I'm talking about other types of funding programs because we need assistance from the local jurisdiction. So I think that would be something that we would have to be working together on. I don't really envision us changing the percentages. Using my crystal ball anytime in the near future to allocate, reducing the amount of what you have there for streets and roads and shifting it to regional. I think it would be something that we just be working with the agencies on and strategizing how we're going to get funding for a particular project that's on a regional list. But that's just today, me speaking today. I don't know how things will be 30 years from now, but that's how I see it.
Well, you described it a pretty streamlined process. So I want to think that would be the case, right? I mean, you said anywhere between 2 to 3 months, do your due diligence, public hearings, what have you. And I'm sure we can get something in writing that says, these allocations are changing from regional to local or flexible, whatever the case may be. I just want to confirm that wouldn't be an issue down the street.
Right. And no, just so everyone knows here in the group, we work really closely with your staffs. And we at the Madera County Transportation Authority would not be moving forward independently without the consensus of the local jurisdictions on any types of projects moving forward. So I kind of take pride in the fact that we work well together. So I don't see that happening in any, at least in the near future.
Thank you. I was trying to protect Supervisor Poitra's time, and I'm trying to drag this out so that Brett doesn't beat him. He did give me Starbucks. You better than that, then that's.
I'll send it with DoorDash right now or Uber Eats. It'll be at your office shortly. Frank, actually, we don't need you with more caffeine. That might go a little bit longer. Frank?
Just to point out one last thing, just to agree with this. I've noticed that the cities and counties work wonderful together. Let's just ensure for the future generation coming behind us that'll be doing our work we're doing now later, that we at least have guidelines in writing that they need to understand. We did this because we worked together well, and our goal is that they continue to do so, and that we make sure that we have language that allows for the cooperation in the future, because we won't be the people running the show in 20 years. That's all.
We agree.
All right. Was that a motion?
Yes, I make that as a motion.
All right. So accept that with those, and staff has good direction on all this.
I'm sorry, Brett.
And so you're good with all this? We'll be able to build that all in?
I second.
Or it's already in there? All right, so we have
Yes.
a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Dina, can you call roll, please?
Yeah, I'm getting there, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
She's on Team Rob too. She was just waiting. I know what's going on here.
I wasn't sure if she heard you.
Not quite ready here. Madera County Chamber, or Madera Chamber of Commerce, Debbie Bray. MVP Realty, John Reed. Red Barn Cafe owner, Lisa Soroyan. Visit Yosemite, Madera County, Rhonda Salisbury.
Yes.
City of Chowchilla, Councilmember Palmer. City of Chowchilla, Rod Pruitt.
Yes.
City of Chowchilla, Jason Rogers.
Yes.
City of Madera, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
City of Madera, Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
City of Madera, Arnaldo Rodriguez. Keith Helmuth.
Yes.
Ellen Bitter. David Huff. Valley Children's Hospital, Tim Curley.
Hey there, I am on the line, but I'm going to abstain only because I came into the conversation late and wasn't picking up a lot of it on my phone, so I'll abstain.
Madera County Public Health, Stephanie Nathan.
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier.
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras.
Yes.
Jay Barney.
Yes.
Madera County, Matt Traber. Madera County, Jared Carter.
Yes.
Leadership Council, Leticia Lucan. Camarina Health, Paulo Soares. Camarina Health, Nicole Mosqueda. Madera County Farm Bureau, Christina Beckstead. Creekside Farming, Devinder Motho. Madera County Superintendent of Schools, Opie Ryer. Madera Community College, Dr. Angel Reyna. Cal Fire, Matt Watson. Caltrans, David Padilla.
Yes.
Building Industry Association, Michael Prandini. Madera County Economic Development Commission, Bobby Kahn.
Yes.
Tehipity Chapters, the Sierra Club, Bill Felbo. MCTC, MCTA, Patricia Taylor.
Yes.
Central California Labor Council, Mike Lopez. Central California Labor Council, Chuck Riojas. Social Service Transportation Advisory Council, Frank Simonis.
Yes.
Active Transportation Advocate, Jeffrey Wheeler. Conrad Gaunt. San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, Dan Levitt. Our Student Representative, Jonathan Stormer. Our Community Advocate, Derek Robinson.
Yes.
And Donald Hawley. That concludes roll.
All right. That's good job, everybody. Great questions, great conversation today. Next item.
Alex or Charles?
That's it, yeah.
That's me. I just have a 3-hour presentation. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be quick. And just an update is that we're going to be doing another mailer in June, just to recap all of the great work that this committee has done, including, the plans and everything that we've talked about beforehand. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be countywide again, and inviting feedback, of course, and then kind of next steps in the process.
Thank you. Props and measures. Are we going to do anything on this, or?
Yeah, I think she's done.
Okay, I didn't know if Dylan was going to do anything on the props and measures. All right, next item.
So in terms of next steps, the schedule is complete as of today. One thing that we are doing with the Fresno group is we are reconvening in June so that they can provide formal public comment or formal comment during the public review period on the plan and the implementing guidelines. So that would be the pleasure of this committee if you wanted to do that. But this is our last steering committee meeting before the project team goes away and prepares the plan and the implementing guidelines, which, as we noted, needs to be out for release on June 20th. So the MCTA board will review the draft plan on July 20th. And then the Board of Supervisors will be requested in late July or early August to place the ballot measure on the November midterm ballot. And the sample ballot language, or excuse me, the actual ballot language would need to be to the elections office by August 12th, according to TBWBH in their previous research. So that is the schedule at this point. So,
and if I can just add, and Georgina mentioned it, but I'm just kind of emphasizing, in the month of June, this will be going to each local jurisdiction, so the cities and the county, before their councils or board. So we're aiming, like for instance, for example, we're aiming for June 21st for the Madera County Board of Supervisors. So they will be seeing this draft form for comments as well. Right, Georgina?
yes, exactly.
And
there will
so,
be places for public comment
yeah,
at
right.
the meetings.
And so the
Correct.
staff here, just so you know, we have our staff reaching out to you or your CAOs or county clerks and clerks to the boards to try to get on that calendar.
Ellen?
When the plan is ready, it will be mailed out to everyone on the steering committee. It will be also, a link will be sent out to you, so you'll be able to get to it through the website. The link will also be emailed to the general email listing that MCTC has on file. So other stakeholders, agencies, etc. And it will be online, so anyone can find it.
And I'd just like for those that have asked for a copy, if they email it to them.
Yes.
All right, Ellen.
Yeah, the list or the document that will be made available for everyone, is that a draft document or would that be in final form? And I guess stepping backwards, is there a parallel process where the local agencies maybe still have some feedback back and forth on the implementing guidelines before it gets published?
Yes, we're going to be working with you directly, Ellen. As noted in the implementing guidelines, we're going to be working with the local agencies on those implementing guidelines. We're going to be taking the guidelines that are in place now and augmenting those, adding to them. So we'll be working with you as we do that. We're going to need to do it fairly quickly, though, because that plan has to be out on the street as a draft document for public review, as I mentioned, on June 20th. So we'll start to work with you immediately, likely next week, so that we can pull together the implementing guidelines, and we won't have too many edits or changes to make once we put that draft out for public review.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, I mean, I personally don't think we need this June 30-day public review. That will happen at our boards and councils. Is everyone else okay with that? Right. Hearing no dissent. All right, we'll move on.
Sorry. Last
All right,
item.
any public comment not related to items not on the agenda. Is there any online? Anybody here? I'll make, I just want to thank all of you for all of your time and patience and input. We could not have gotten through this without all of you and what you bring to the community and those that you represent has made this process very good. I really appreciate all of you for being here. Not just today, but I mean, this is a lot of time that you spent on this and really appreciate you. Appreciate staff. Georgina, thank you very much to VRPA for everything that they've done to continue to make this process as smooth as possible. And
thank you.
Co-chair, actually, that's looks like Mayor Garcia has a comment, and then I'll let my co-chair wrap it up so that he can push it just outside of the Mayor Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Chair Frazier. I just want to say to all of you that due to the tragedy that we had with the Fresno River and the burning of the homes and our community be affected in the city of Madera, we've been burning up the candles at both ends. Thank God that we have cooperation from the state of California, our assembly and senators. We've had contact with and cooperation with MID, we're making things happen. And we're moving forward for rectifying the situation on the river as we speak. Lieutenant Foss has sent out a crew to start working on cleanup. We have an agreement with Fish and Wildlife that we can start the process. And so I just wanted to give you that update. I know that you've seen a lot of stuff on the media about what's being done or not done. I just want to make sure that you understand that the city of Madera and our partners are working diligently to make things happen. And so I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. Pray for the folks that have been affected. Obviously, they're traumatized, but we are moving forward with taking care of the problem at Fresno River. Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me a second just to give you guys an update.
Of course, and you don't just have support from the state. We're here for you as well. I know that Chowchilla would be, and so anything you need, county is here. We're all one community when it comes to these kinds of things. So let us know what we can do to help.
Thank you very much.
Co-chair.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Frazier, and I appreciate your hard work and helping us get through this, and ditto on all your comments in regards to our consultants and agencies and those participating in this steering committee. And it's great that we've got to this point, and guess what? We've got opportunities for you in the future that I won't talk about right now, but we'll definitely be reaching out. So thank you again so much.
Thank you, everyone. And I'd like to also thank the sub-consultants and MCTC staff, MCTA. It's always been a pleasure working with you guys, and it's been another pleasure this time around. Moy and Associates, TBWBH, you guys have done a great job, and we're really proud to be a part of this. So thank you so much.
And with that,
everybody.
thank you. And
thanks, everyone.
That I have the distinct honor of closing this last meeting. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Bye.
All right, thank you.